Since this is the final video in this series, it would be well to watch the preceding 10 videos to understand the background to what will be discussed in this video. We have now come to the climax and final episode in the great cosmic conflict that has been raging ever since Lucifer defected from the government of heaven. All the issues and doubts that have been raised regarding the character of God and the laws by which he governs the universe are to be finally and forever settled in the minds of all the intelligent beings. And the question will also have to be answered whether the plan of redemption, which was put into operation to save fallen humanity, is totally effective in securing rehabilitated sinners against falling back into sin. Does the plan of redemption really work? When the truths of salvation have been presented to the whole world in this end time, and all have either received the mark of the beast or the seal of God, Christ will cease his priestly ministry and prepare to come back to earth. The judgment has fixed everyone's destiny beyond change. The 7 last plagues will begin to fall on the rejectors of God's mercies. Yet the 144,000 are still left on this earth during the falling of the plagues, although they are protected from receiving them. But the question of why Christ does not take them away to heaven at this critical time needs an answer. As mentioned previously, the 144,000 have another important assignment which is critical to bring the cosmic conflict to a successful conclusion. Lucifer has raised many doubts and serious allegations against God and his government. He claimed that the laws of God's government are impossible to keep perfectly 100% of the time. He claims that 1/3 of the angels couldn't keep it, and that none of the inhabitants of earth have been able to perfectly keep it. And with so many defections, it would seem to lend credibility to his allegations. How can all these objections be fully answered so as to leave no shadow of doubt? That is a monumental task. Christ has given assurance that affliction shall not rise up the second time. But that assurance may need a double assurance. The whole universe knows how sin arose right next to the throne of God by Lucifer, who served like his prime minister and occupied a throne next to the throne of God. Would it be possible that sin and affliction could arise again through rehabilitated sinners whom Christ has promised to grant to sit with me in my throne? Some of them at one time were thieves and adulterers and violent offenders and even murderers. How secure would they be from reverting back into their former ways and starting another nightmare of sin all over again? These questions could make unfallen beings very uneasy. In order to assure that affliction shall not rise up the second time, and that the unfallen worlds will welcome the redeemed of earth into their society, Christ will allow Satan and his evil host to try the 144,000 as he tried Job's integrity and faithfulness. It will be a most critical ordeal for the 144,000. If any one of them should succumb to Satan's sophistry or threatening, there is no longer forgiveness available to them. They would be forever cut off from God and eternal life. This final episode involving the 144,000 was typified in the ancient sanctuary service at the close of the Day of Atonement. On that day, the high priest entered both apartments of the sanctuary to cleanse it from the sins which had accumulated there during the year. This final ceremony is described in Leviticus. And when he hath made an end of reconciling the holy place and the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar, he shall bring the live goat. And Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over him all the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their transgressions and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat, and shall send him away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness. And the goat shall bear upon him all their iniquities unto a land not inhabited, and he shall let go the goat in the wilderness. In this transaction, the high priest represents Christ, who, as priest in the heavenly sanctuary, has been bearing the responsibility of all the sins which were confessed and transferred to the sanctuary. But Christ does not intend to bear the sins of his people throughout eternal ages. He longs to be free from that burden. In Isaiah he says, "Thou hast made me to serve with thy sins. Thou hast wearied me with thine iniquities." The ceremony with the scapegoat shows us how Christ will roll all the sins that were confessed at the sanctuary upon the originator of sin. Satan is represented by the scapegoat, also called Azazel, who was brought forward at the end of the Day of Atonement to receive the sins which had been brought out of the sanctuary. In Leviticus we read, "And Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat, and confess over him all the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their transgressions and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat, and shall send him away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness." The wicked who have never confessed their sins to Christ and received pardon will have to bear their own sins and suffer the punishment for them. Although Christ bore the sins of the whole world on Calvary, the wicked will have their sins rolled back upon their heads. They will have to atone for their own sins for which Christ suffered and died. But the confessed sins of the righteous will be placed upon Satan, the originator of sin, who will have to bear the punishment for them because he is responsible for the entrance of sin into the universe and tempting mankind into sinning. But there is another participant in this final transaction with the scapegoat, who is often overlooked. Leviticus brings to view a fit man whose job it is to lead away the scapegoat to his doom in the wilderness. Who might this fit man be? Leviticus tells us that he is a man of the congregation, who obviously had participated in the Day of Atonement and typically received its benefits, the blotting out of sins and the reception of the refreshing latter rain. And the ones receiving those benefits are the 144,000 who are sealed by the latter rain. They obviously are represented by the fit man who leads away the scapegoat. Yet how could the 144,000 lead Satan away to his ultimate doom? They will do that the same way that Christ defeated Satan on the cross. By his steadfast loyalty to his heavenly Father, Christ bore the pillars of Satan's kingdom to the ground and assured his ultimate destruction in the lake of fire. Likewise, the 144,000 triumph over Satan by their steadfast loyalty to Christ under the fiercest assaults from Satan and his angels. If Satan could get even one or two of the 144,000 to yield to his temptations, the whole plan of redemption would be proven to be less than 100% effective against the recurrence of sin. The 144,000 have received all the benefits of the redemption which Christ has provided. If that did not prove 100% effective against sin, the plan of redemption would ultimately be proven to be a failure to secure the universe against another apostasy. Then the righteous who are waiting in their graves to be resurrected and taken to their eternal reward would not be resurrected. That is indicated in Hebrews 11. After depicting the great heroes of faith, who in the past proved faithful in the face of great temptations and trials, and even torture, it tells us, "And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they, without us, should not be made perfect." Those who have died in the past are depending on the 144,000 to prove that they who will be resurrected will be safe to be taken into the society of unfallen beings. They will receive all the benefits of redemption that the 144,000 have received when they are resurrected, but they, without the 144,000, will not be perfected for their heavenly home. However, we can thank God that not one of the 144,000 fail in their greatest hour of trial. Revelation 15 depicts them in glowing terms. "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God." The 144,000 prove that God's law can be perfectly obeyed through his strength, even by the weakest generation who have received all the benefits of his atoning grace. They are the last generation to live upon the earth after thousands of years of sin and degradation, when wickedness and the sins of the world have reached unto heaven according to Revelation 18. It will be obvious that if 144,000 of the weakest saints, living in the most degraded time of world history and during the greatest time of trouble and testing, would rather die than sin against God, then all the dead who have also experienced the fullness of redemption which Christ has provided will be safe in a sinless world where there is no tempter to beguile them into sin. Truly, sin and rebellion will never manifest itself again. Through the 144,000, Christ will doubly assure the universe that affliction will not rise up the second time. Their loyalty also proves another point against Satan's kingdom. The 144,000 have tasted of Satan's kingdom and have understood by experience the pleasures of sin and all its enticements, but they have forsaken the service of Satan to become children of God and have tasted of the pleasures of his kingdom. If they were to go back to the service of Satan, it would be a testimony to the whole universe that Satan's kingdom is preferable to God's kingdom. This would bring great dishonor upon God, but none of the 144,000 ever go back into Satan's ranks. In fact, they would rather die than return to the ranks of evil, and thus they prove for all time that the service of God is infinitely better than the service of Satan. The universe has witnessed through the millenniums how God's people have been taken captive into the bondage of sin by Satan and his hosts. They have seen how even some of God's great men like Abraham and Moses, David, and Elijah have at times been overcome by Satan and have had to be delivered by Christ from being his captives. But there is a dramatic reversal when the 144,000 come on the scene. The Bible tells us, "And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." The 144,000, as the typical fit man, will lead Satan to his ultimate doom in the wilderness. And as your typical stubborn billy goat, he undoubtedly will make a desperate attempt to get free from the hands that are leading him to his doom. But he could only do that by getting one of the 144,000 to yield to his power. However, that will not happen. The 144,000 fully realize the promise which Christ has made, and the God of peace shall bruise Satan under your feet shortly. The whole universe will have become witnesses to the nature and results of sin, and its utter extermination, which in the beginning would have brought fear to angels and dishonor to God, will now vindicate his love and establish his honor before the universe of beings who delight to do his will, and in whose heart is his law. Never will evil again be manifest. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. The law of God, which Satan has reproached as the yoke of bondage, will be honored as the law of liberty. A tested and proven creation will never again be turned from allegiance to him whose character has been fully manifested before them as fathomless love and infinite wisdom.
You can find the special truths for these end times by visiting https://prophecyalert.org. There you will find links to playlists of past informational videos in this series as well as new videos and publications as we produce them.